everybody, and today I thought I would tell you a little bit about what it was like to move abroad with children and what the experience was like for them. Stay tuned. Hi there and welcome back. If you're new to my channel, my name is Kelly and I'm an American living in a small town in the middle of Denmark's peninsula. But more importantly for me, I am a mom of 2 boys. And when my husband mentioned the idea of moving to Denmark, my children were 5 and 3. And I had a lot of concerns about them with regards to moving and how this experience was going to be for them. Before we get too involved with that, if you have not already subscribed to my channel, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you around. Don't forget to ring the bell to get notifications when I post new videos. Can you believe that 73% of you aren't subscribed to my channel? But yet you're here watching my videos. Thank you for being here. But let's commit already. Put a ring on it. Subscribe to my channel. Now also, I wanted to give a quick shout out to Anna Louisa, who is sponsoring this video today. Thank you for sending me some beautiful jewelry. I absolutely love it. But I will be telling you more about this jewelry later on in the video, so stay tuned for that. Right now though, I thought that I would start by giving you a little bit of background about how was it before we moved. Well, first off again, my kids were 5 and 3. I have 2 boys. The 5-year-old was in American kindergarten when we were living in the US, and the younger one went to a daycare. We had been coming to Denmark, ever so often, maybe for a summer, maybe for Christmas. So it was like a month at a time or 2 weeks at a time, but we never really lived anywhere else. We never lived in Denmark. We only lived in that house in Illinois since they were born. That has been their whole life. But then when my husband said, hey, we're moving to Denmark, there was a lot of things that I had to deal with because I had 2 months from the time when he got the job offer to the time we flew away that I needed to focus on. So I didn't really do a lot of prep with my kids, but we tried to keep telling them, okay, well, first we're gonna box up our house and all of your things are gonna be sent to Denmark. We'll see them again. We had to make sure that we were communicating with our kids about what was happening because this was so unlike anything from their normal day-to-day. We explained the process. We explained when they were going to stop going to school and daycare. We explained the fact that we were going to be taking, a week before we actually flew away to visit family and say our goodbyes because who knew when we would see them again? We wanted really them to understand the step-by-step. We had them focus on things that were easier to focus on. The fact that, okay, well, we're going to go visit grandma in Ohio before we fly away. And then when we get there, we're going to be staying with your grandma in Denmark. And I think it really kind of helped that they knew what was going on. It wasn't a big confusion right away. But one thing to keep in mind is that my kids did not speak Danish at all before we moved. I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. But first I want to tell you a little bit about Anna Louisa and the jewelry that I have for today. So if you stick around for about 2 minutes, I can go into a little bit of depth what I've got on today and how you can get some of your own. So first off, Anna Louisa is a sustainable jewelry company. They're based out of New York, and I have worn some of their jewelry in other videos. And in fact, I wear their jewelry pretty much every single day. It's something that really just goes with my style. It's not too flashy and it's not too bulky or heavy or anything like that. It just really fits. I got these new earrings. I like to have ones that, aren't really small but aren't super huge. I think this is perfect. I think this is the perfect size. And these are kind of like little hoops. I've never been one to wear like the big hoops or anything. I can't really wear a lot of different kinds of earrings. But when I saw these, I thought, this is perfect. This is my way of getting my hoop. And then I have a necklace, and it's so nice that the thickness of the gold is much thicker than other necklaces that I have. I really appreciate that, and I love the texture of it. I've got this beautiful heart pendant, and it's actually a little bit heavy. It's kind of nice, you know, it's just enough weight to put on it. But I love the length of it. I love how it goes past the neckline of my shirt. I like to wear jewelry every day. I like to have a necklace on. I like to have earrings, and I think these go so well together. One thing that I really love about Ana Luisa, though, is that they're really big into sustainability, all the way from where they get their materials to their packaging. You know, their packaging is in a recycled box. And it's also quite affordable, especially if you're thinking about getting gifts for the upcoming holidays or birthdays or something. This is not that expensive, and it gets to you really fast. It's coming from New York, but believe me, this did not take long to get to Denmark. The pieces start at about $39 US and go up from there. They're very affordable and they're very long lasting. So if you want something that kind of fits a lot of different styles, they've got a nice catalog online, so you have to check that out. In the description below, I'm going to put a link to some of their Black Friday deals that are coming up, and you can also get a discount with that link. So be sure to use that. So if you're into sustainability like I am, this is a great company if you're looking for sustainable gifts or maybe something for yourself. Go ahead and check out that link below. Now let's get back to our topic. As I mentioned before, my children did not know any Danish when we came to Denmark. You would think that I have a Danish husband, that they might know something. Nope, they didn't know anything. But I knew that I really wanted my kids to speak Danish because they were part Danish. And moving to Denmark would really get them to do that. So when we moved here, they couldn't speak any Danish, and we thought right away, well, it could be a hard transition for them to kind of get used to the new surroundings and then have to learn another language. So what do we do? Well, we debated on whether or not to send them to an international school or to a Danish public school. So I went back and forth with pros and cons for both for quite a long time. I mean, my son was in American kindergarten, and I thought if we go to an international school, he could just continue where he left off. But because Denmark wants the kids to start school at 6 years old, he would have to go back to daycare for a few months before he could start over in kindergarten in Denmark. So it was almost like repeating kindergarten. But it's not really, because he's now having to do everything in Danish. So it was a lot of like kind of stress for us in the beginning. If you want to know more about the pros and cons between a public school and an international school in our situation and why we chose the school that we did, I have a full post on that on my blog. I'm going to put the link down in the description below so you can read through that. If you're in the same situation and you're really unsure of what to do, maybe that will help you make your decision. But obviously, you have to do what's best for you and your family. For us, the best thing was for them to get into Danish everything. We actually put my son in soccer. We had lived here for 2 weeks, and we signed him up for soccer on his 6th birthday. And it was so crazy because, I mean, he didn't understand anything the coaches were saying. And again, me as a worrier mom, I was concerned that he would get frustrated and it would just not be a good experience for him. But he was so quick to learn what the coach was saying. That was a fantastic thing. It ended up being a great way for him also to make friends. So he had that, and then we also lived in an apartment building where the next door neighbor was a boy who was the same age as my son. So they got used to playing, you know, one-on-one with a boy who only spoke Danish, who didn't speak any English. And so they were kind of learning from each other. When they started daycare, we had lived in Denmark for a month, but we were just kind of getting used to our surroundings, the playgrounds and things, so we were just speaking English at home. But when they started daycare, everything was in Danish. No one spoke to them in English, and really, it was frustrating for them at first. My son would come home and say, "Mom, I don't understand what they're saying," you know, and you could tell that he felt bad about that. But we just encouraged him and said, you know what? You're going to be learning a few new words every day, and really, it's okay that you don't need to speak Danish right away. Just do the best you can. You know, the teachers are going to be there to help you, and they were there to help him at the daycare. It was so nice. My younger son was always quiet about it, so we really don't know how he experienced it as a 3-year-old. But again, with daycare, the kids play. And play is kind of a universal language. And I think for the most part that the teachers at the daycare could understand and speak English, but they weren't speaking English to our children because they wanted them to learn Danish. That's maybe the positive of living in a traditional small town where people are very much into being Danish and speaking Danish and all those sorts of things. I think it helped the boys learn the language so quickly. They were in daycare for 3 months, and it's interesting because they started daycare about the same time that I started language school. And obviously, their language skills were so much better than mine were. I mean, it was 6 months until I could understand what anybody was saying. And I think it's because, I have a lot of other things going on in my head and I overthink things. When you're a child, you're so much more flexible with kind of learning about your surroundings. And in this case, learning the language. Their brains are like little sponges. So they were picking up things all the time. Then we had a month off in the summer because that's kind of how things are here in Denmark. And they were home most of the time and speaking English most of the time. My older son in the fall was starting kindergarten for the first time. He actually had to go to what's called a tosprogklasse, which is a 2-language class. So he had to be put into a class during Danish lessons where he was learning vocabulary. At the end of his time in daycare, he was tested and we found out that he doesn't have a strong Danish vocabulary. Well, no kidding. He was only speaking or being, around Danish for a couple of months. So there's no possible way that he would have a strong vocabulary in Danish. So he had to go to this, what in English we would call this ESL, like English as a second language. He had to go into a class like that. I know that in bigger cities, and I've heard this from other international moms who live in Aarhus, that they have a separate school where these kids go to. Maybe it's because they have so many. But I think in our small town, we don't have the facilities for that, and I don't think we have the need for it. But there were quite a few other kids that year in his class, his Toast-Bro class. They were from Lithuania and Romania, mostly. But he wasn't alone, which is kind of a nice thing that he could experience this with other kids. So he did that. And again, it was only during the Danish lessons. So the Danish kids went to Danish and the international kids went to the tosprogklasse, where they were slowly kind of building their vocabulary. And this is only kindergarten. So it's not like he had to be able to be at this really high level of like reading novels or crazy stuff like that, So he was really just kind of getting used to maybe how to pronounce things and all that sort of stuff, the alphabet and whatever else. He could do a lot of things in English. That's not something that he really needed at this point in time in kindergarten. My younger son was in daycare for quite a few years before he started school here. And so he didn't have to go to that tosprogklasse when it came to his turn to go to kindergarten. He went and started his classes and did everything as if he were born here because his Danish was just as good as anybody else's. And it's so funny because I would say that after, living here for 6 months, like I said, I was just getting to the point where I could understand what my teachers were actually saying to me or people around me. I still have problems. It's been 4.5 years. And that's the problem when you surround yourself with English all the time. I'm speaking English to you. I work in an English-speaking environment. I go to an English-speaking school. Yes, it's so much a slower transition for people who rely on another language that they already have a good grasp of. But I would say after that 6 months, they were pretty much understanding and speaking it because they didn't have English anywhere except for with me when they came home. And I thought it was still important for them to maintain their English, obviously, because they have American family. I don't think that it really kind of dawned on me that my kids were speaking Danish until, I would hear the two of them playing with each other and they would be speaking in Danish the whole time because Danish is the language that they use the most. So it's just like second nature for them to use it when they're having a down moment. There are a lot of people who live in Denmark who speak one language and they speak to their kids in that language at home, and they're concerned with how is it going to be when my kids go to school, or they're pregnant and concerned with what language do I speak to my child. Don't feel that you can't speak your native language to your child in a different country where they have to learn this other language. They will learn that other language. I mean, especially if you put them in a Danish daycare and you put them in Danish school, they're going to learn it much faster than if they were in an international one. And I'm speaking about that from experience. But I say that as a teacher. We would see kids come in and they could not learn Danish as fast in an international school because it was only a foreign language. It wasn't a part of their day more than English was. And in order for it to be a fast way for you to learn the language, you want it to be the main language for most of your day. I wouldn't say that there are so many huge cultural things that my children had to learn in order to adjust to living here, but the language was the biggest part. You know, there are still little things that they don't quite understand and they have a little bit of shock by. You know, I mentioned it in another video where a soccer coach was saying a lot of swear words to the kids when they were 5 and 6 years old, and my kids would get afraid because they thought he was yelling at them. Well, in Denmark, they don't see American swear words as being a bad thing, and even little kids say them sometimes. I think that that was kind of shocking to them. Even though people may be doing other things, they don't do those other things just to kind of fit in. My kids aren't swearing because they know how I feel about it, and we've talked about it. And we know that when we speak English to other people, it's just not acceptable behavior. But we accept the fact that other people do it. We just don't have to do it ourselves. You know what I mean? It's one thing to move to another country and to adjust to how things are here. And we have adjusted. My youngest son eats rye bread every day in his lunchbox because that's something that you do in Denmark. So we've really adapted to a lot of things, but you gotta kind of have to pick and choose what fits for you. And really moving to Denmark was a good choice. My children are supported here. Denmark is a great place to be a kid because kids are valued, and it's a very child kind of centered type of country. There's playgrounds everywhere and it's safe here. So I think my children enjoy living in Denmark, and we talk about, you know, sometimes about how things are. And, you know, if you've seen some of my other videos about, you know, you're raising a child in Denmark when, I've got a couple of videos for that. I'm going to put them down in the description. But, you know, it's becoming their new norm. They don't really remember what life was like in the US. My older son does, but it's kind of hazy memories. My younger son was 3 when we moved here. He doesn't remember our house in the US or what his daycare was like or a lot of those different experiences. So for the most part, it's like he's a Danish kid growing up in Denmark. Because they speak and understand Danish fluently, you would never know that Danish was their second language. And for me, I feel a little bit of security and kind of happiness knowing that they don't have to feel awkward like I feel awkward when I have conversations with people and I don't know what they're saying, or I don't know if they understand what I'm trying to say. I'm glad that they don't have to go through that type of experience, or they don't have to feel these massive culture shocks because of things being so different in different situations, because it's pretty much their life. This is where they live. I think that if you are someone who is thinking about moving abroad and bringing your kids, if you're moving to a place like Denmark, it's not anything that you need to worry about. It's a great experience, even if it's something that you're only choosing to do for a couple of years. I mean, if you fully immerse yourself into the culture of where you're going and you immerse your children into it, you really are going to have some really great memories to take back with you. We've lived here for 4.5 years. My kids are adjusted. This is their life. This is pretty much all they know. They're really connected with the kids in their class. They have Danish traditions that they follow and that they're really happy about and excited about. And we're really glad that, you know, they have this kind of life. We're really glad that we chose to live in a small town. We think that it offers something different, you know, more traditional way of life. It's something that I think that if you're debating on whether or not to try something new, I would just go for it. Kids are so flexible that they are able to adapt to things much easier than we are. If you are an international parent and you're living abroad, let me know what it's like for you and for your children. Did you have a good situation when you changed countries? I know that situations can be very different for older children. If you have older children, I'd like to know about that. Let me know in the comments if you have a situation that you'd like to share. Thanks for coming along on this video, and thank you so much to Anna Louisa for the beautiful jewelry. I'm absolutely loving it. I'm so glad for these new pieces. Check out my Instagram stories. I'm going to be posting all the different jewelry that I've gotten from Anna Louisa just to give you an idea of what you might be able to get with your discount code, so check the description for that. I hope to see you in another video, and as always, take care.